Carrie the Thany Snail Tano here, the internet's only snail. There are no more. Stop looking for them. I've told you to stop looking for them. Lists. I love them, you love them, we make them because art is cool. But we want to know how cool. Today I'm going over my top 3's in a myriad of categories because I like stuff, okay? There's a lot of it and I can't just choose one category. We're doing music, films, games, books, but also we're doing a bonus category, YouTube videos, because YouTube videos deserve to be ranked along with the rest also. That's a lot of stuff. So I'm just gonna start right now. Music. Let's start with music. And no, I'm not reading from my Spotify Wrapped, okay? I don't care how often you listen to something. What I care about is what you really liked, what you enjoyed, what you were titillated by. Enjoying art is not something that should be smashed into a number. Except for when I rank it in this video. So we're going number 3, JPEG Mafia, I Lay Down My Life For You. Pretty much anytime JPEG Mafia drops some music now, it's gonna show up on my top list because he just consistently is an incredible hip hop producer and rapper and retools his style with every new project, but with somehow even more creativity and just hard-hitting vibes. Outlandish sampling techniques, grabbing dialogue snippets from Succession and turning that into a whole banging song. Sometimes JPEG can get a little lost in the sauce in his albums, but this one just seems super focused, super collected, and has so many tracks that have a great song structure and energy from top to bottom. What is that? Who are you? I was sent here by Aura, who is sponsoring and protecting this video from theft. Have you ever gotten any spam calls, texts, or messages that you weren't sure were real? Identity thieves and scammers are more vigilant than ever, coming up with all kinds of fancy ways to steal your personal data. Oh no, USPS just sent me a text saying they had a problem delivering my package to my address and I have to click this spooky link to get that scam out of here. Yes, I clicked on the link because I was scared my long Furby nighttime clown pastel variant was going to be lost in a warehouse somewhere. If you're not careful, interacting with one of these messages can result in a breach of your private data. Okay, let's say a cousin of mine lost their identity because they clicked on every single one of these links because they were really scared that they were going to lose their rare custom Chihuahua Furby Deadeye variant. Aura has a data broker opt-out feature that scans the internet with scanning technology and removes your personal data from brokers and sites trying to sell your information. One of the most important features of Aura is that it monitors your social security number across billions of data points like the dark web and public court records. Aura will also alert you anytime it detects that somebody is trying to open up a credit card or loan in your name. And with the press of a button, you can lock your Experian file just like that. You see that? You see how fast that was? What's most assuring is that Aura uses the same safeguarding standards as banks, as the military, and me. Your information stays safe with Aura, and you never have to worry about it being sold to a third party like your Furby was. Wait, what? All of this and even more is provided on the affordable Aura app. Scammers are getting even more convincing with predatory tools. And so if I'm gonna be on the internet, I wanna make sure that I'm protected. If you don't wanna leave yourself vulnerable to data theft, check out the link below and try 2 weeks of Aura free. In that time frame, you can find out if any of your data is exposed. Thank you so much, Aura, for sponsoring this video. Online privacy and protection is something I care about a lot. Me too. Number 2, Radiohead's OK Computer. This past year was actually the first time that I had ever listened to OK Computer. I don't know why, it was just one of those albums that just kind of always escaped me for some reason. And so if you remember from my physical media video, I really took the time to sit and enjoy and listen to Radiohead, and yeah, it's a classic like everybody says, or at least I can see why now. It is just absolutely incredible guitar work, compositions, with some really powerful and sometimes harrowing lyrics. Not only is this just an incredible album, but I think I liked it especially because I devoted a lot of time and focus to it. I listened to it on my CD and read through the booklet and really absorbed it through the course of a month, and I feel like I know it better than a lot of other albums that I just listened to on streaming. And so the frustrating thing about Spotify Wrapped is that you will never see this album on there because I listened to it on CD. The problem with Wrapped is that it's based on what numbers it collects from you. If I'm gonna be honest, this feels just exactly like what Bo Burnham said in Inside. It is the flattening of our human experience. 9 out of 10 times, my Spotify Wrapped does not reflect at all what I actually liked in the year. Because yeah, I could be listening to one song like like 1,000 times because it's a banger, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's my favorite or that it was like the most moving for me. I just had a good time with it in the car. Here's the thing. If you're a pretty casual music listener, you don't really care about doing the whole rank thing, whatever, like Spotify Wrapped is totally fine. But if you're somebody who really like cares and values the particular art you consume, don't let this thing tell you what you liked. All Spotify is doing is just collecting metrics about you and spitting that back out. Yeah, it's kind of like a fun, goofy thing to look at, but I would never look at it as like, look, this is me. You could define me by my Wrapped. Don't be that person. I think one of the most egregious things that Spotify involved on the Wrapped this year was like a listening streak. Who cares if I listen to a song like every day for a whole month? Spotify cares, but like, what is it? It doesn't matter. Anyway, I know I'm hating on the Wrapped a lot, but I'm kind of hoping that the Wrapped inspires us more to like cultivate our own lists of things that we like. I always love making a playlist of my top 10 favorite songs of the year. But at the end of the day, I think I just value taking ownership of, the art that we experience and like curating that into like a best of. I think that's just a lot of fun. Anyways, I am so sorry. Yeah, OK Computer was really good. Number 1, McGee with 2-Star and the Dream Police. Now, I'm not going to say that this is one of the most like mind-blowing, like fantastically written albums like ever this year. I think there are certainly others that are better, but for me, this album really excels in the vibes category, and I just found myself coming back to it time and again throughout the whole year, and never really getting tired of it. It's really spacey and vibey with a lot of reverb and just like collages of just instrumental textures. A really fun album that just has a lot of interesting textures to it, a lot of great vocal passages, even if it does just scream bloody murder at like a moment's notice, and a lot of really impressive guitar work that sometimes you wouldn't even think that it was actually guitar being played. Might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it certainly was mine for this year, apparently. All right, let's move on to movies. Now, I'm going to talk about prequels for a moment. It's really easy to hate on prequel movies because of the dumpster loads of them we have, and because at the end of the day, they're just a cash grab. Like, let's not be gaslit into the idea that like, oh, this prequel needed to be told. But this year, I saw 3 prequel movies, and they were all amazing. I saw the first Omen, Wicked, which I'd consider an honorable mention, and then my number 3 pick, Furiosa. Not only do I love the recent Mad Max universe, the action is so visceral, hard-hitting, the world building is just so unique and creative, so it's great to see more of that in a prequel, but above all else, this movie really succeeds in doing what a prequel should do. In my opinion, I think a prequel should be able to stand on its own as an entertaining movie, while at the same time expanding and creating nuance for the story that will follow it. And this movie destroys it at both. Holy guacamole, does this movie just make Fury Road like 10 times better? Mad Max Fury Road's plot is really next to nothing. There's just a lot of crazy action, and the action's fantastic, but storytelling-wise, it really comes through the character Furiosa, and because we don't even know her that well, we don't really get completely what's going on. Furiosa fills that in for us. He created so much depth for the characters, and that was an incredible feeling to rewatch Fury Road and suddenly have this whole new perspective on it. So yeah, really fun movie on its own, but again, adds to the actual story. It expands it and creates more nuance. Number 2, Dee Dee. Dee Dee has a lot of similarities to that movie 8th Grade that Bo Burnham made. It's a coming-of-age story in the technological age. In this case, it's a little bit earlier than the iPhone era, and it's a little bit more in that YouTube era. And there are so many scenes that are just filled to the brim with emotional potency, along with the awkward of adolescence. It rides that really perfect line where you just can't help but laugh at how awkward these kids are, but then also really feel for them and feel for the struggles that they're going through. Honestly, it's a really great movie. I don't have too much more to say about this other than it's just like a really like honest and touching just portrait of growing up at this time and the obvious frustrations and highs and lows that you go through. Really funny, but also some really tender and genuine moments as well. Number 1, Civil War. This might be like one of A24's like biggest feeling movies. It feels very large scale. It doesn't feel like some small indie movie, and boy does it matter in this one. This is a road trip movie where we follow some war photographers as they capture an America that's in the midst of a civil war. One of the best choices that this movie makes is that it does not tell you why there's a civil war happening. And I think that's the wonderful point of this movie, is that it doesn't matter. It's more about observing what happens to Americans in the midst of a war, the different kinds of patriotism or lack thereof. And so not only is that just a very substantive component to this movie, but then also you follow this war photographer who is just hardened and emotionally numb to the things that she witnesses because she has witnessed the horrors of war. And ultimately, you kind of have to not care. And so this movie rides this wonderful tension of seeing what's happening to these different Americans and their photographer's stake in all of it. It's a wonderfully challenging movie, especially when America seems more divided than ever. Now, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I don't know if you know this about me, but one of my core identity characteristics is a gamer. But surprisingly, this year I actually only bought 8 games. I know, inconceivable, but I did it off and on the past few years because I noticed at a certain point I was buying a lot of games and I was barely even playing through all of them, and it was just really wasting not only my money, but my time too. That's a big time commitment to play through so many games. And I'm just, I'm an adult that doesn't have time anymore. And to me, 8 seems like the good amount. It's not too little, but it does make me pay attention to every game that I buy. Anyway, if you want me to talk about that more later or something, I can, but these are 3 of the 8 games that I played this year. Number 3, Rise of the Golden Idol. I made a video a while back about for the first game, and without rehashing all that, it's a fantastic game. It's a point-and-click detective game, and it's super simple, but it does so much with that simplicity. And Rise of the Golden Idol is like the official sequel to the series, and boy, does it feel like it. It's polished, the artwork got a facelift, it's now not pixelated, but it's these wonderfully painted characters and scenes. What it does the absolute best is how it makes you feel. A game like this does a really good job at making you feel like a detective, giving you little puzzle pieces here and there, but it doesn't give you the picture necessarily. So as you start fitting them together, you start making connections and you're like, oh, that works here. And then wait a second, I thought I saw him over there, which means that that person drank that thing and it meant that the bird pooped on this dude. And then all of a sudden you're like 5 mysteries deep. It's amazing. Number 2, the Silent Hill 2 remake. This game is terrifying. Probably one of the more terrifying games I have played in a while, and the real strength of this game is not only is it a pretty faithful, from what I've heard, adaptation of the original, but from every aspect of how this game is crafted, it's designed to mess with you. There may not be a lot of variation in the enemy types or maybe even the map types at some points, but the thing is the environment you're in is kind of like the silent enemy that's attacking you. Everything from the sound design to the music to the visuals to the way that like certain creatures behave is designed to wear down your mental fortitude. I could not play this game for too long of a time. Maybe I could play this game for like as long as an hour, and then after that I had to like go rest. Because it is so oppressive and it just swallows you in this dark, dank environment that you cannot escape from. To be honest, I haven't played the original, so I'm not really comparing it in that regard. But even still, this is like as a standalone game, it works phenomenally. Is that a word? I don't know why, but that sounds really weird. And now to the number 1. Yes. If I did have a Spotify Wrapped for my gaming, my gamer Wrapped, it would tell me that I had played Balatro the most throughout this year. And in fact, yes, it is also my favorite of this year. Who would have thought that playing poker by yourself would be this fun? I have never really played poker in real life, and I don't even really care for like traditional card games all that much, but holy guacamole, this game is one of the best and most fun deck builders I've played since like Slay the Spire. The sheer amount of depth that this game has by giving you these Joker cards that each have their own abilities and then they can affect each other in sequence is astounding. It's crazy. Listen, I can throw up about Balatro all day, but I think there's probably other people who have said way more important things about it. I will say this, I love me a good deck builder roguelike, but even a game like Slay the Spire sometimes can be just a little too dense. I tried playing it again recently, and it like, if you haven't really been in the systems of it, you might have to like relearn it a little bit and just kind of get with its systems, its vibe. But Balatro, even down to its theme, is just so approachably simple. Like I don't have to worry about what character I choose and which card combos they have, and then therefore like what card synergies and relic synergies I need to get. Balatro is just like, yeah, you just make poker hands, and if you get good jokers, play to that. Like that's as simple as it gets. It feels like you're playing a poker version of solitaire with like house rules. And those house rules are enough to just keep you coming and experiencing something new and different every single time. What will it take to stop playing Balatro? All right, now before we get to the books, I know I've been yapping a lot, but just stick with me for a sec. I actually want to rank some YouTube videos. I feel like people don't ever really like rank YouTube videos or, throw them in the conversation of like art. But to be honest, I think YouTube deserves more of it. I don't really watch a lot of TV because YouTube has kind of replaced it for me. And to be honest, I find more passion, art, and talent in the YouTube space than I do with a lot of TV shows that come out these days. I know that's not completely fair. There are obviously a lot of good shows out there, but I'm like more excited and intrigued by what people are creating, just like average people who are, trying to tell a really interesting and unique story just on their own and with the resources they have. TGI Frozen Food by Brutal Moose. To put it simply, Brutal Moose is the epitome of taking something pretty mundane and turning it into the most visually entertaining and stimulating thing you've ever seen. With his wonderfully dry humor and his just absolutely bonkers editing style. It makes videos where he like goes to the mall or reviews TGI Frozen Food like an event. Love you, Chef Ian. Kisses. You are the brutal to my moose. All right, next up we got I Built a Car Out of Scooters by Michael Reeves. I've actually never seen a Michael Reeves video. I know how. There's a lot of big YouTubers for whatever reason. I just never really came across. He was one of them until this year when he released this scooter video. And boy, you're obviously going to start seeing my taste because I'm really drawn to very expressive and creative editing styles, and Michael Reeves is amazing at it. He also kind of has that like Casey Neistat flow and delivery and like quick pace of things. If I'm going to be honest, sometimes I feel like his videos even go a little too fast, but I turned 30 this year, so maybe that's the reason why. But dang, the things that he accomplishes just as like an engineer and the way he tells you the story of how he did it is pure entertainment. Like pure entertainment. This is, I think, a great example of like the best of YouTube. He's taking a skill that he has, doing something fun and goofy with it, and telling you an amazing story about how it happened. And that's just a really YouTube thing that I love. And number one, very different from the previous, but let me explain first. I don't know if you're familiar with Ethel Cain, but she's like an indie singer. Does a lot of meditative and atmospheric indie rock, and usually involves a lot of like dark and creepy themes. To be honest, I haven't really listened to her a ton, but her cover of American Football's For Sure breaks me down every time. Anyway, apparently she uploads to her YouTube channel just like casual videos like in between her music videos. So her YouTube feed is pretty funny. It's like a music video for a single and then like a video of her reviewing some like ambient sound device. What caught my eye this year is this video where she gives you a tour of her art book collection. Part 1. This is a very to the point video. It's almost an hour of her just kind of sitting there and showing you her art book collection. And there's some kind of like ambient meditative music in the background, which is actually a song that she composed herself. I suspect she's inspired by ASMR because she speaks in a very consistent and calming tone, and it gives the video a very relaxing atmosphere. And that's really about it. Would I recommend this video to anybody necessarily? Like, not really, unless you're, super into her as an artist. But for some reason, I really liked this video for 2 reasons. One, it's got that classic YouTube feel to it. It is such a YouTube thing to be able to peer into somebody's life and experience a piece of their world. I think it's what makes YouTube so special. And to me, this was a very genuine example of that. Even though she's like a touring artist, it's not like she was like flexing on us in her mansion in her like $50,000 collection of art books or something. If you didn't know she was an artist and came across this video, she would seem like just any other person. The second thing that I really liked is actually what I learned from her as a person based on her book collection and her, like the design of her room. She clearly has some eclectic art and she's very thoughtful and intentional about how she curates it. I guess I'm really drawn to people who have like a very definitive art style that they love to surround themselves with because it's a very clear outward manifestation of their tastes. At some point in this video, she mentions that her favorite color is light tan, and it makes sense when you kind of look around her room and you see like the very earthy tones that complement light tan. And so yeah, I don't know. It's a very simple video. I actually put it on when I was like really stressed and like working from home. And it like kind of calmed me right back down and really intrigued me. I know if you're a content creator, there's just like this underlying feeling like you need to jingle keys in people's face as fast and as hard as possible to get them to pay attention to you, which may or may not be actually true, but people still do it anyways because that's just what like the meta is. And anyway, it's refreshing to see people just not doing that. Like they're just doing their thing. Anyway, yeah, I really just enjoyed how this video felt and the old YouTube feel that it had to it, how calming and unbusy it felt, and also her style, her artistic sensibilities. This video is a really great way to just peer into that aspect of her world. That's really cool. You ready? The moment you probably all been waiting for? These are my top 3 books of the year. To be honest, I didn't make a video of every book I'm talking about here, but I did make a video about some of them. I did make a video for this book, however. Number 3, Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This was a part of my read every best-selling fiction and nonfiction book at Powell's thing of the year. And it was the first nonfiction book I read, and honestly, really impactful for me. It's Michelle Zauner's story, particularly a period of her life when she grieves the loss of her mother, but as well as her connection to her culture through food. I'm not going to rehash about it because, again, I have a video where I talk about it, but as an Asian American, the key takeaway that I had from it is carrying out your culture through the food you make. It's a very simple truth, but one that I think is told very beautifully through Michelle's story. And this has inspired me to take ownership of doing that, of making recipes and carrying on that tradition for my future family. That act of carrying on culture doesn't just happen. You have to embody the techniques, know the tastes, and create it for your loved ones to enjoy. I've now started to compile some of my family recipes so I can start doing the same. And I am in that process now of taking the meals that I loved growing up and being the one to do it myself. Like it's a really crazy point in adulthood to take that on. So this was not only just a story, full of a lot of fun and heartbreak, but also a really insightful one in terms of how culture lives on through you. Number 2, Atomic Habits. It feels like such a grind set bro move to put like a productivity book like this on the list, but honestly, I do think it deserves it. I also read this during my physical media video, and while I didn't really talk about it explicitly, I did reference it. And I know this book has been around for a long time and it's very popular, but long story short, I think everybody should read this book. What I really appreciate about this book is that it's not the kind of self-help book where it's like, all right, you need to overhaul your whole life and start eating bull testicles every morning because you need the nutrients. It really just helps you observe real truths in reality and gives you tools to work with it. And that is the construction and tearing down of habits. James Clear breaks it down into a very simple formula that helps you build habits and then inversely breaks them. I think everybody should read this at some point, and here's my reasoning why. I don't know if you've thought about it this way before, but habits are very important for the formation of your identity. You don't just choose to become an alcoholic. You become an alcoholic by the habit of drinking very regularly and often too much. If habits are a big component of your identity, then it would be very important to learn how to build good habits and break bad ones. Breaking bad habits. And this book gives you tools to do such thing. All right, last one and the number 1 book pick of the year, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, I'm sorry, but I didn't make a video about this one. I didn't feel the need to review it necessarily. I read a good amount of fantasy this year, but this one in particular had me thinking about it long after I read it very often. Even though this book came out over a decade ago, it's still pretty popular, and I get why. So this is technically a sci-fi book, but for all intents and purposes, it kind of pretends it's a fantasy book for the majority of it. It's actually very similar to Hunger Games and follows a lot of similar beats to it as well. But to put it simply, please don't attack the messenger. You chose to watch this video. I didn't force this opinion on you. I kind of think that this book is better than Hunger Games. I mean, yeah, Hunger Games is great. It's more of a young adult novel for sure. I think this game takes some of those Hunger Game concepts and kind of does more with them, gives it more nuance, and is also a little bit more exciting. So to be honest, if you like the Hunger Games, I think you're going to like this book a lot. And if you're like me, maybe you might even like a little bit more too. But I think the best and most engaging aspect about this book is the characters and the prose. Let's start with the prose. Pierce Brown's writing style was definitely pretty noticeable after reading a lot of Sarah J. Maas. He has this tendency to write very short sentences, but the way he writes them, he almost makes them feel like very important statements. I don't know how to describe it completely, but the way he writes, it just gives this story a very visceral inertia to it. I think he is a great example of less is more. Now, to his detriment, sometimes I think he could be a little too brief about some things. Certain areas where I really would love to see be, more of like an openness and expansion of a character's thoughts or feelings or the way, some event happened. It does almost feel like sometimes he's like listing you off like what he did today, but it's just enough to like keep you hanging on and keep you getting gripped by this book. Honestly, I was shocked about how fast this story got going and how gripping it was. It only took me 50 pages to really get to the point where I'm like, oh shoot, this is some good stuff. Like, I want to keep reading. I think his writing style definitely contributes a lot to the movement of the story and how action-packed it is, because this book is very action-packed. And then there are the characters who I really liked. And to be honest, I don't quite know what ingredient it was that made me like them so much. And the thing is, it's not even like I love the main character, but I kind of like all the characters you see pretty frequently, like equally. There's a certain point when the book locks in and you follow a few characters, and all of these characters were really compelling. And so this writing style, along with the characters, again, made for some very compelling moments. I understood all of their motivations and kind of got into how they would behave in certain ways. And so when you see certain turns of the plot coming, you were scared because you knew how somebody might react and how that might create, some tension in the group. But yeah, I thought about this book a lot, and I'm really excited to read the rest of the trilogy. It was my favorite book of the year. Woo! Well, that was a lot of my favorite media of the year, but my number one favorite chips of the year are the Flaming Hot Sour Cream Cheddar Cheese Ruffles. Holy guacamole, I found these during my 7-Eleven video. These chips are incredible. The Ruffles make them crunchy. They got the potato chip flavor, but they also got that flaming hot zest on it. It's my new all-time favorite chip. So, okay, now we've covered all of our bases. Thank you so much for hanging with me and just listening to me yap about the things I liked this year. Honestly, I would really love to hear some of your guys' top threes. You could do all the categories, or you could just pick a category and list your top threes. So I'd really love to hear them. Don't send me your Spotify Wrapped, okay? I won't look at it. Send me your real picks. And also for all the real mollusks out there who are still hanging around, I'm going to do a new reading challenge this year. And I just want to let you know, just in case you wanted to join me. So PewDiePie actually announced that he's doing a book club, and he's rereading a lot of these philosophy books that meant a lot to him. And I have been really wanting to read some philosophy again. And I think he does have a pretty nice array of books that he's doing. And so I'm going to do that this year. I'm going to read with him. And if you want, you can read with me also. I like how I'm trying to siphon off his little book club and do my own book club, but I'm reading the books that he's anyway. But yeah, I'm really liking when creators do their own sort of book club, and I really like the books that PewDiePie picked out this year. So I'm going to be reading those. I might make videos on them. I'm not sure yet, but it's definitely possible. And so yeah, if you want to join with me on that, let me know. Let me know if that's something you want me to follow, and if you would like to see videos on each. It's Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I'm so sorry if that was incorrectly pronounced. But yeah, some Chinese wisdom that we're reading this month. And it's pretty short too. And they're kind of like sonnet vibe, like stanzas of thought. So I think it should be pretty easy to get through. And yeah, that's about it. Peace.